What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
And you got Fuego here.
And we are here to do an advanced review of Terminator Dark Fate. Oh boy, alright, that sounded excited. So, guys, we're going to do this review like we do our normal reviews, which is we'll talk about our overall thoughts, then we'll talk about the story, the acting, the effects, the music, the sounds, all of that good stuff in turn.
I've just been very averse to this title since I first heard it announced. Yeah. I don't like the title.
Yeah, the title's a little bit weak.
Yeah, but I mean, Genesis, Jenny Smithy.
You
Missy's,
make that joke
whatever.
every time, every single time you refer to that movie. Every single time.
Yes, because Cecil and I reviewed that movie for Fuegotainment almost 4.5 years ago, so that shows how long it's been since the last Terminator entry. They did some television in the meantime. There was a Machinima series that was around the same time as Salvation. I guess that would definitely have been before, now that I think about it. But I never watched Sarah Connor Chronicles. Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah? Was it any good?
No.
No? Okay.
Not really.
Yeah.
I mean, there were parts of it that were okay, but nonetheless, let's talk about this movie.
They've tried things.
So, yeah, overall, I was not blown away by this movie. I didn't think it was the worst, but I definitely think it was just another... It was the Force Awakens of Terminator movies, except somehow way less satisfying.
Very much so, in fact.
So it followed a lot of the same beats. It had a lot of the same action beats. And even the action beats that weren't from other Terminator movies, they were from other movies that we'd seen before, from The Mummy to The Fast and the Furious. I'm speaking specifically of the cargo plane.
Yeah.
It felt like there was nothing that we hadn't seen before in this. Even though it was a Terminator that was both endoskeleton and T-1000 that could split apart, we've still seen both of those things, just separate. So this is not even as sort of unique as the Terminator in Genesis was.
Why not send back an army of Terminators to kill one person?
That might be more interesting, although you'd get into the Neo Agent Smith fight territory that might not look great. But yeah, my overall thoughts were it was well produced. I really did enjoy seeing Linda Hamilton come back, but everything around her was so samey that I was just kind of underwhelmed.
Yeah, I was likely underwhelmed as well, mutually. This is one that I think I bought too much into the hype of the fact that certain critics I respect on the Twitter sphere and whatnot were praising it as being the best since.
Campia?
As being the best since two. No, actually, William Bibbiani, Haley Fouch, different people who write for Bloody Disgusting, Collider, different. I mean, specific critics that I really dig. I don't really watch Campia that much anymore, although there's a guy defecting from Collider in the show. Anyway, that's nothing important here. I'm not going to boldly say this is any better than 3, 4, or 5. I think all of those have their merits in their own regard, including this one. There was some stuff I really enjoyed about this movie, and I wanted to really, really like it, but I just couldn't because it did feel so rehashed and so much. I did not think Linda Hamilton's performance was as good as I was anticipating, and I will also say
she didn't have that much to do.
No, she didn't. I thought Mackenzie Davis was badass though. She was my favorite part.
New Termahuman.
Yeah, exactly. She was she was
the
basically
Humanator?
She was basically like Sam Worthington in Salvation.
True.
In a lot of ways.
True.
You know, it's not like this was a new thing. But,
that's the problem. None of the things in this movie felt new.
No.
None of it
at all.
And that's actually kind of. I actually recently watched Cody Leach's review of Terminator Genesis.
Yeah,
he did Terminator Genesis, and he was like actually praising the things that they were doing differently by making John Connor the bad guy and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of true.
And
at this point in the
Dyson's
series,
kid
hang on,
yeah.
But at this point, the thing that's interesting is when they're veering away from the formula because they've tried to rehash the formula so much that it's just like. I've been there, done that. I mean, the long and short of my overall is that I chuckled once. I didn't laugh at all. Chuckled once. Otherwise, just kind of stared blankly at the screen the whole time and just watched things happen. I wasn't engaged at all.
I think I chuckled when I wasn't supposed to, and there was also one woman just to the left of us who laughed at a couple lines of dialogue.
Really?
And I was just like, whoa. Anyway, I honestly enjoyed Arnold better in Genesis than in this one. The way they wrote his character, the script, while it has great action, it's well produced and stuff, and it looks cool. the story was just, it brought nothing new to the table that excited me, and
there was no real explanation for why he was the way he was in this movie.
I hated the retconning in this movie. I honestly.
The retconning.
Legion.
Oh yeah, okay.
Hated it.
Yeah.
I thought it was terrible. It's not a terrible movie. It's visually. I mean, Tim Miller.
They didn't retcon. They just. That's technically going in a new direction.
That's one thing.
But they acknowledged everything that they did before that was cool. That we're like, oh, that's the name brand that we know. You know, without giving away anything. But not only that.
The tough thing with time travel movies.
Not only that, though, they do something at the beginning of this movie that is reminiscent of something they do at the beginning of another sequel that we won't mention because it will ruin it. But they do something.
Had its second entry directed by this same director.
Really? Oh my god. They basically blankety blanked the beginning of this movie, and I was like, no, that's got to be a dream sequence. Yeah. It's not a dream sequence? What?
And then, in turn, since there was projection failures, we had to watch it twice.
Yeah, we did.
Double down on the aspect of it. So I was just like, really? Wow.
Yeah, so, did you finish your overall? I guess we should go into the story.
Yeah. Overall, I just like the last 3 Terminator movies, I appreciated aspects of this movie. But Terminator 2 is just, for me, one of the greatest movies that's ever been made.
It's one of my top 5, for sure.
It is so ridiculously good, and it's probably impossible to ever top that. I know
best
some
action movie I think of all time.
In a lot of ways,
Aliens and T2 are pretty close.
Both directed by the same guy. It's
funny
how that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, but overall, this it was good but not great. I appreciated it because of the fact that I love this franchise. I've read the Dark Horse stuff. I've read even when the property transferred over to, it's at Dynamite now, or it's at like one of those that has all the film franchises.
Boom. I don't know.
I think it might be Boom, yeah. But they did like a sequel to RoboCop versus Terminator. I mean, in a lot of ways, I would prefer to read Frank Miller's RoboCop versus Terminator.
It sounds like you're doing everything you can to not talk about this movie. You're talking about all the other Terminator proproperties.
It's tough, right?
We got to focus on this movie. So let's talk about the story.
Let's do it.
So the story is, it starts off with a Mexican family, and you get a brother and sister that are just going about their daily lives when suddenly we get Terminators popping in. We get and both of them, by the way, I do think it's funny that the terminating, or that the group that sends these Terminators back, call them Skynet 2.0 if you want. They have not perfected making sure that the people they send back are on ground level, because everyone that appears has like a couple of story drop in this movie. Exactly. But nonetheless, we get the Humanator, the female Humanator, and then we get the Duelinator, which is the T1000 T800 combo pack, in Gabriel Luna, played by, or who also played Ghost Rider, right? In Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in those 2 seasons. So yeah, it's like an interesting enough setup, but then it's so on the nose from Terminator 1 and Terminator 2. It's like they blend them both, but you know, they both immediately know exactly where to go. It happens really fast.
Where she gets to the factory so quickly, I was just like, wow, this is very conveniently. I want to see a pitch me.
The Gabriel Luna, and we'll get one. The Gabriel Luna was channeling Robert Patrick when he was first doing the investigation, but they abandoned that so quick into action T1000 mode for the rest of the movie. Like there was a couple times where he was like, you know, doing the whole smiley information gathering where you know, Robert Patrick was like, the Galleria, you know, there's a couple of moments like that where you're like, okay, cool, let me get to know this guy, I'm enjoying it, and then very quickly abandoned into hack and slash mode from that point forward. Literally from that point forward.
Just for another comparison to another Terminator movie, I liked the fact that in Rise of the Machines we had a female villain. I enjoyed that. It was a nice change of pace, and she was hot but yet very scary and formidable and stuff. So I don't know. Gabriel's okay, but as far as the story goes, yeah, I like the fact that they brought it back to Mexico. You know, they have that connection.
That makes sense.
With
that's well, you know? But again, even that beat was matched when they go to Mexico and find a friend. Like they go to Mexico and find a friend, and like, or they're in Mexico already because that's where Linda Hamilton would be, or except that's not necessarily where she'd be.
Because in the flashback in the beginning,
not only that, but because she goes where she's needed. when she's needed.
Yeah.
You know. So anyway,
as she very lightly elaborates upon and as to why she's where she's.
So yeah, continuing back to the story, we're kind of going all over the place. So I'm trying to make sure we're a little bit on target here. So yes, the two Terminators appear, try and track down this Latina who works at this machinery plant, and it's so on the nose because one of their jobs is being taken by a machine. You know, I'm like, okay, guys, heavy-handed much, but nonetheless, it's the setup, and so the Terminators, the action starts really rapidly. So I'm on board for that.
Yeah, and it was well orchestrated, and we'll get to that. And
the fight scenes were pretty cool. The one-on-one fight scenes were pretty cool. Yeah. When things got a little bit, when a lot was going on, it got a little bit nuts for my taste. But yeah, those one-on-one fight scenes were pretty cool, especially towards the beginning. Yeah. So they go on the run, and they're having a confrontation with the Duelinator. And of course, just like in the trailer, Sarah Connor pops up and stops the Duelinator just long enough for them to team up and go off, and that's the rest of the movie. It's Mad Max Fury Road, where the whole movie is a chase sequence. Well, it's Terminator 2, where the whole movie is a chase sequence.
That's what I was just about to say. Yeah. It's like in T2, there's the initial confrontations, and then they go into hiding for a while, and then there's the final confrontation. And
except there's so many conveniences as to how the Duelinator finds them every single time. There's always a camera pointed anywhere. And even Linda Hamilton's like, oh, you can't go anywhere in today's day and age without leaving a digital trail a mile wide because of all the cameras.
It's like,
when there's a bunch of Mexicans trying to hop a train to cross the border, I don't think that's full of cameras. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so there's a lot of conveniences.
Another genre film with a train when we just had it in X-Men, when we've had it,
the train isn't that big of a deal, but I'm just saying the setup as to how the cameras were suddenly there too, it just didn't make sense. So yeah, that's it. That's the long and short of it. It's a chase scene, and they eventually have to come across another Model 101, a Cyberdyne Systems Model 101. Being Arnold Schwarzenegger, it's not a different model. It's a different one. It's the same model, but a different one. Yeah, right. It's not the one that went into the lava at the end of T2.
It's a different model in the fact that one was T whatever, the other one was T800. This one.
No, he says I'm a Model 101. He says I'm a Cyberdyne Systems Model 101.
But I thought T800 was the one.
T800. Yeah, but he's still Model 101. He even says in T2 that he's Model 101.
Okay, good call.
Yeah, that's still the T800 thing. Yeah.
So we had three different versions of, actually 4 different versions of Arnold, if we want to think about it. Well, no, even 5, because even they had the weird digitized Salvation.
But some of them don't count.
Yes,
that one does not. They've retconned a bunch of them. Yeah. Nonetheless, they do have to team up with this version, and at least they made it interesting which version it was.
Interesting enough.
Tying into how the movie starts and stuff like that. So that, I was like, okay, at least they're doing that. However, the way Linda Hamilton should have reacted and did very briefly, she abandons that way faster than I think she would have, considering everything that she went through. Anyway, again, we're skating close to spoilers, so I got to be careful. So let's jump into the acting.
Well, I mean,
no, let's talk about the story still. What are your thoughts on how the story unfolded?
It was not very compelling, regrettably, but I will say, as far as the scripting goes, I was happy at least to have this film back in the territory of dropping F-bombs and being a little more violent.
It felt like those were more of the reason for the rating, our rating, than the actual violence.
Which is what's funny, because
it's a bummer.
I did read a report where they didn't even know until post that they were going to make this a PG,
of course,
a
rated R.
Yeah, they shot multiple scenes with, Mackenzie Davis, really nice butt. I'll be honest, she looks good.
Oh, and, I guess that and the multiple F-bombs. It wasn't the gore, though. The gore was definitely PG-13 realm.
Yeah, and the fact that Arnold was on social media talking about the fact that there's people getting sliced up and blah, 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 and then when I'm watching it, I'm like...
It's no different than PG-13 movies now.
This is even tamer than Drag Me to Hell.
I agree.
What are we talking about, man? So...
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
It was for the butts and the Fs.
Yeah, exactly.
It was for the fucks and the butts. We're allowed one.
Really? The F's and the birds.
So
nice to see the franchise return to the territory.
But the story
was just really...
It was rehashed.
It was too rehashed. It was too callbacky, and it was too callbackula. And for that regard, I felt very similar to you, whereas I was kind of engaged in the first and in the third act, especially. But it dragged in the second act when we're just doing the hanging out thing, and we're getting to know this version of the Arnold.
No, we didn't even get to him until almost the end of the second act.
It was almost the end of the second act. Yeah, Carl. Well, just call him Carl.
Just call him Carl.
For whatever reason.
I wish they would have at least done Bob, because that would have kind of been a tie into Uncle Bob.
I thought the stupid smiling in Genesis was funnier from Arnold than in this one. I liked Arnold.
You get used to it.
Yeah.
That was funnier in Genesis.
I liked Arnold better in the last one. His chemistry with
he
Amelia
looked way
Clarke.
more like a human Arnold than a Terminator Arnold in this one, and unfortunately they kind of leaned into that, and it didn't really work for me because the explanation for it didn't really make sense. But acting wise, let's jump to the acting. You thought Mackenzie Davis, I thought she was strong. Yeah, I thought she was super strong.
She's a terrific actress, and I've seen her do really dramatic stuff. I've seen her do silly shizzle. I mean, Lizzie Gets the F Across Town or whatever that movie's called. Great.
Gabriel
Jason
Luna,
Reitman film that she did with it's called Tully. It's got Charlize Theron. Terrific movie.
Well, she's good in this. She's just fine in this.
Yeah,
she's
and
serviceable.
the fact that she's a badass, I mean, yeah, I can dig it. But you're gonna point to
Gabriel Luna, the Duelinator.
I liked him.
I thought he was really good when he was able to play both sides of the coin, but when he just becomes, stone-faced the whole time, there's only so much you can get out of him. So he only really had about 10 minutes to play.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the hour and 40 minutes,
his, vernacular and accent and stuff. I thought that was fun.
At times, that was just voice stuff. He just lipped it, and
he's like, "Man, I prayed to God more than I ever have."
He wasn't bad. He wasn't bad.
Yeah,
I guess no one was really bad.
No one was bad.
But no one really. You thought Linda Hamilton.
I was expecting more from Linda, man.
I don't know what you were expecting. I think the dialogue is what fell short. Not her performance.
Some of her dialogue was just.
She has this whole thing, and she has this whole kind of where she tells who she is, and then she finishes it with a sentence that's like, "Whoa, that's out of nowhere," or where she's like, you know what I mean? And she talks about it. I'm like, why? Why would you throw that in? Like, you're undermining your character, and you never touch on that again, and it's like there's no reason. But otherwise, I thought there was one point where she gets really intense, like she was intense in the tape from Terminator 2.
Remember at the very beginning.
Yeah, they start with that. That's how they're like, hey, remember this? Is because it literally starts with the tape of her in the Institute saying, and then they fly apart like leaves. And then, they even cut out Dr. Silberman. She doesn't mention his name, even though...
which is the guy who,
you're the one living in a dream, Dr. Silverman.
Yeah, the guy.
It happens. But they cut that out. They cut out. You're the one living in a dream. It happens. They just cut out his name because they're like, ooh, don't want to pay that guy royalties if he's even still alive.
Good call.
But
what about Danny? Did you think that decent?
I thought she. Okay, here's the problem with Danny. It plays very girl powery.
Yeah,
it plays very she's so strong so quickly. Yeah. She never has a weak moment, and that doesn't make sense to me. When this happens, you're gonna be freaked out. That's why Terminator 1 makes sense, because Sarah Connor was freaked out because she was being stalked. She was Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween.
She was kind of frail.
Yeah, she was a bit frail, and then in 2 she was big and badass. So in this one, she's meant to be both frail and no nonsense badass without having earned it yet. Yeah. So I felt like that was weird. Yeah, and I don't think it worked that well.
Criticize Rey for being that same sort of thing.
A little bit
in the new trilogy for Star Wars and stuff. It just became very apparent to me in one scene in particular where they're shooting watermelon. And I was just like,
unearned badassery.
Yeah, I was like, okay, yeah, exactly.
Okay,
so.
So sound and music. I thought the sound was good. The music was, they were just lifting the best parts of T2 whenever they wanted.
And yet
otherwise it was unnoticeable.
Yeah, it was very we
when it wasn't the riffs we know, I couldn't point to anything that was cool.
Same. Yeah, we heard the just prominent and recognizable stuff at the end of the movie, really. Which I've been playing with my band Chiron at the last like 4 shows. Like we've been doing that, and I love that. I love it. It's so great.
So they did that, of course, but the sound design was cool enough. But it's so muddled with everything that's going on. You're hard pressed to pick apart any individual sound in those big conglomeration of all the sounds scenes.
Yeah,
you know what
it's
I mean?
like a smorgasbord, like sonic onslaught of so much.
Really
and it really,
is.
I can only imagine being one of these Hollywood people trying to mix that and fit everything in these little sonic pockets of, just
to make it make sense
just
too for
panning
where
and
the
everything,
audience
man.
is
Like,
and everything.
my
Yeah.
God, it's just nuts.
It gotta be
to me.
painstaking. Gotta be painstaking.
Yeah, indeed. And you're just like putting on the reverb to get it to feel closer and stuff. Like, yeah.
Now-
But it's still it's well constructed. Cameron back to produce and Miller directing, who was a guy that I didn't respect, and then this kid Tim Miller, obviously.
This kid Tim Miller, yeah.
Kevin Smith reference there. But as far as like effects and
We got to get into the effects.
Do you think it was an improvement on the look?
Here's the thing.
I thought in a lot of ways it
Here's
was.
the thing. So
Especially in the third act, like when you saw the pieces of flesh coming
there was
off
some
and
good stuff that was done better.
It looked
However, the stuff that still doesn't work is when you try and have something move like it shouldn't be moving. So when Gabriel Luna jumps up to the second floor of something and like clambers up, that still looks like CG to me.
Which happened in the
you
first
can't do
act,
that.
and it was totally
All
CG.
the close-up stuff, that's looking way better than that stuff where they're moving, from afar. It just doesn't work as well. They still haven't keyed that in. The close-up stuff and the de-aging stuff.
Yeah, the de-aging looked very
There's
good.
some very Marvel-esque de-aging in this.
Yeah, I'd say
and it
even
looked.
better
I think it mostly looked good. I think one of
Sarah's
them
case.
didn't look great. Yeah, Sarah looked good, and even Arnold looked good. But let's get careful.
Well, it was announced he's in the movie.
Well,
or
but
at
we
least
can't.
his
Let's still
character's
not.
in the
Let's
movie.
not. Shh. Stop it.
Sorry.
We don't want to spoil. I didn't anticipate that that's how it was going to be. So stop it.
They had him come out at Comic-Con.
Doesn't matter. We don't know in what capacity. So stop it.
Sorry, man.
Stop it. So anyway, I don't know. I think we've kind of tore into this movie enough at this point. I mean,
In some ways, yeah.
we didn't hate it. It just was not great.
Man, everyone, and once again, critics that I respect built it up, and unfortunately, the burden of expectation is a phrase I say all the time because it's real shizzle. It's there, and I did like in the third act confrontation the look of the crusted flesh falling off, and I'm thinking maybe that's something they wouldn't have done as just adamantly in a PG-13 film, because it was quite gory in some ways, and I don't know, Mackenzie Davis, and she's the standout in this film for me in a lot of ways, and boy, aside from that, I don't know if there's a lot else that I can praise in this film, and if you watch the movie, you'll know, well I can't say anything.
Yeah, stop it.
Yeah.
All right, so that's going to do it for our non-spoiler review of Terminator Dark Fate. I don't think it's worth doing a spoiler review. I mean, let us know what you guys think of the movie in the comments down below. If you've seen it, try not to spoil it for anyone else. But yeah, that's going to do it. If you enjoyed the video, click that like button and subscribe if you want to make sure you don't miss videos like this going forward. If you didn't know, we are currently in the middle of a crowdfunding campaign for a fan film we are doing called Dylan's New Nightmare.
Hell yeah.
It is an unofficial sequel to Wes Craven's New Nightmare, starring Miko Hughes returning to play Dylan Porter. It is currently live on Indiegogo. If you guys want to make sure we bring Freddy back in a really cool way with an original cast member, then make sure you click that link and subscribe, or click that link and contribute. Yeah. Or if you can't contribute, go ahead and share it out so more people see it. We greatly appreciate it.
All from the brain of this man.
I appreciate it. Until next time, though, I've been Cecil Laird.
Gracias, I've been Jaime in Fuego.
And remember, stay scared.